Hello and welcome to the DrivingMaul show. Hi, I'm Paul. I'll be your host this evening, and joining me to talk about all things rugby, it's Mr. Stephen Harris. How are you doing, sir?
Good evening, Paul, and obviously to the people tuning in. Good evening to everyone. Once again, always a privilege and a pleasure to be on your show.
And yes, you can join us every Monday at 8 p.m. Well, as long as we think things are going well. We can see that Stephen's had his finger on the pulse of real rugby in New Zealand, as he was up running the scoreboard for White and Matter at the weekend, and you might recognise one of those people, not just Stephen, but a rather famous All Black there stood next to
you. Very privileged enough to have played with Michael back in the early '80s before he became super famous and dragged out of the under 21 grade we were running around with him, and of course Rod Gabb, who's also in the picture as well. He got the job of actually putting the scores up, but we had to go and support him because the visitors scored the first try and he put the score the wrong way around. So we thought we'd better head up to the scoreboard just to help him out. So Michael was the assistant to Rod, and I was the assistant to Michael. So he had two assistants up there, but we learnt a valuable lesson. If you're going to put the scores up, make sure you don't block the scoreboard.
Well, there is that one as well. Yes, so there's a crowd of you there now. Well, obviously you're showing off the visitor score, but not the home score at the moment. By the looks of that.
Well, it was a great afternoon for the club, but unfortunate result at the end. Ironically, the previous week before, Waitemata playing at home had beaten Eden. That's old Amon. That's Amon Hallisey's club as well, friend of the show. 36-10, and of course Saturday gone, Waitemata precedingly lost by the same score, 36-10. Go figure.
Clearly numbers that the club like. Apparently there is going to be a Pacific Nations Cup match in Rotorua on September the 6th between Fiji and Samoa. Obviously the Rotorua stadium must have been renovated because it was, if you remember from last year, all of the NPC games were held in Tauranga, not in Rotorua, for Bay of Plenty, because of renovations to the pitch from memory. Interesting one. That one, I'll be honest, I'm not a fan. I think these games should be in Fiji or Samoa, or wherever. That's how those unions can build up the sort of commercial around tickets and memberships and all that kind of stuff. But hey, if it's in Rotorua, that means a few fans here in New Zealand will be able to get to see it for that one. Let's touch on a few pieces of news then. Look, Les Kiss is going to be the next Wallabies head coach, just not as quickly as some of us thought. We mentioned a few weeks back as being a rumour, but apparently now it has been announced that he will start, but he won't start until his contract with the Reds which finishes next year. So Joe Schmidt has agreed to stay on for another 8 months, and will basically cover the squad all the way through until until next year. So interesting one that the Reds have obviously dug their heels in, said no, we're not going to give them away for free. You've got to give us money. And the Australian Rugby's gone, well, we don't have any money. So you know what we'll do is we'll let his contract run out then, and then rather than paying for him twice, which is just, I guess it just shows you how crazy rugby is really.
Yeah, very, very odd. Why not just Joe Schmidt see his time out until the end of the year and just make an announcement at the end of the season? Yeah, it's a little bit weird, but listen, it's a good transition period. Also for Les Kiss, I would imagine during this time or after his Queensland Reds duties, he'll probably be a little bit of a fly on the wall, shall we say, alongside Joe Schmidt.
Yeah, I expect him to go to be helping out with the Rugby Championship, probably the Lion, maybe even with the Lions tour as well, before heading back to Reds to do his Probably won't go on the spring tour or the November tour because he'll be kind of pre-seasoning then for the Reds. But I wouldn't be surprised if he was involved in the Rugby Championship games at the very least on that one. Injury news going both ways for a few players. Unfortunately, Brett Cameron is apparently back and is going to be playing club rugby for the next 2 weekends. So we might see him back with the Hurricanes this season in what was supposed to be a season-ending injury. Great to see that he's back. Let's just hope he's not being rushed back and gets injured. On much sadder note, King Naholo looks like he's had another knee injury, and so let's just hope that doesn't prove to be too bad. Look, I've seen him in a moon boot a few times now. Maybe actually moon boots for ankles, aren't they, rather than knees? But anyway, really would real shame to see him. He's finally had a period of where he's not been injured, and we've seen what kind of play he can produce. So, real shame for Keenan Naholo. But some definite thoughts out with Cameron Suafar for the Blues with a recurrence of his cancer, and he'd had surgery last week, and obviously clearly that he's taking time away from rugby because of that. So look, we hope him the absolute best with that. I hope the cancer goes back into remission. And hopefully we'll see him back on the rugby pitch at some point, either socially or professionally. But definite thoughts with Cameron Safar. That definitely kind of reminds you kind of the relevance of rugby. Look, it is a sport for fun and for entertainment. It's not life or death. There are much more important things in this world. Moving on then to off the field matters. New Zealand Rugby have managed to replace Ineos as their shorts sponsor. Ineos being the first ever short sponsor for the All Blacks. Look, it's not that long ago since the All Blacks didn't have a sponsor on their main jersey. I think they've only had two sort of front of jersey sponsors in AIA and now Altrad. Altrad, is that right?
Yeah. Yes. Altrad. Yeah.
But Toyota are going to be replacing Ineos on the shorts, a much more sensible sponsorship and one that you can actually understand. There, look, Ford for many years has been the sponsor of the All Blacks, but I think that finished last year when they all had to give back their Ford cars, and so I guess all the players will be getting new Toyotas now instead. So see all those Toyota Land Cruisers and Toyota Hiluxes arriving soon.
Well, hopefully for Toyota, that'll increase their saleship in New Zealand, should I say, or increase the amount of turnover that they have for Toyota. I know it's quite a popular car in New Zealand, so it's probably not such a bad thing.
Yep, no, they make good utes. That's at the end of the day. They're one of the two types of utes you get. The other one being Ford, obviously. Actually, no, the other one being used to be the that one that's disappeared now. That's what I've got. I've got one outside. Gives it an H.
Hyundai? No. Holden? No.
Holden. There we go. Yeah, it used to be Holden.
There we go. Holden.
That's gone now. Not so good news for New Zealand Rugby though is that apparently there again on Thursday they'll be announcing their third loss in 3 years. As in the amount of money that they make. Apparently, this one now is due to one-off costs. It seems to be due to one-off costs every year. These one-off costs keep happening. Oh, dearie me. So yes, and apparently the collective bargaining employee agreement with the players is coming up for renewal again. That seems to come every year, but I'm sure it's not. It just seems 2 seconds since that last happened. So yes, and obviously, and there's been another report because you know what, rugby just loves reports on how we should improve the game because that's what we need. Is another report on how to improve the game. This one is the Men's Pathways and Competitions report by independent consultant James Morrison. I think you're going to find that New Zealand Rugby are not very happy with this one, because it comes back saying the NPC is really important. You have to keep it. Which New Zealand Rugby have been trying to kill for the past decade. And that more, just as significantly, that young players at development pathways should be through provinces, not through Super Rugby teams, which has been what New Zealand Rugby have been trying to change for the past 5 years. So, interesting annual general meeting coming up, Stephen.
Yeah, it's almost as if New Zealand Rugby are trying to shop around for a consultant that will actually eventually agree with them. But unfortunately, no matter how many consultants they seem to find, they tend to come back with the same result. I don't know what this. You mentioned before these one-off costs. Well, maybe this is this one-off cost we're talking about. Paying a consultant.
Yeah. Oh dear. So apparently, look, we've got a brand new board. There's only one board member left over, which is Catherine Savage, and we have a new, obviously the new head of the board is All Black David Kirk, who now lives over in Australia. So he's not even here to ooze and smooth and actually meet his stakeholders and talk to his stakeholders. No. The best place to manage New Zealand rugby is from Australia, apparently. So fantastic one there. But it just seems when you think New Zealand rugby just can't get more comical, they just seem to do it yet again, which is just so funny.
Yeah, what I was going to say, when you mentioned news, was there a comedy aspect to this piece of news?
Look. I'll be well, so folks, you might have noticed we haven't been as regular as we over the last couple of months. That's because I've not been in a great place, to be honest with you. So I need a laugh, Stephen. I need it to lift me up because yes, absolutely having a bit of a tough time these last few months. On that note, folks, you might have noticed I did used to do, for those who are older with the channel, will remember that actually I used to do some mental health videos as well. So I've obviously had my challenges in the past and still do. But one of my mantras at the moment is do something that your future self will be thankful for. Okay, so try that, folks. Have a think about that. Even if it's just things like, make your lunch tonight rather than rushing in the morning. We all do it with brushing our teeth and stuff. It's not all about, because obviously when you're 70, you'll be happy you've brushed your teeth because you've still got your teeth. So look at doing these things in advance. Not necessarily as big as going to the gym and making yourself fit all the time. Don't try to think of anything too big. Just mean things like making sure if I've got spare 5 minutes, rather than sitting down and chilling out, I'll actually do the washing up and stuff like that. Because hey, as I say, your future self will like it. So have a think about that, folks, about doing something that your future self will thank you for. So that's kind of the news and a little sidebar into mental health and stuff. Look, you've been talking to me about the Champions Cup, so we should very briefly have a look at that because I haven't looked at it, but you have been really kind of excited about by some of the results that we've seen in the European Champions Cup, because I think we're at the semi-final stage of this. And in the semi-finals, we had Leinster versus Northampton and Bordeaux versus Toulouse. And as you said, a couple of upsets in this one, with Northampton coming back, beating Leinster 34-37 after having a 12-point lead at half-time. It's got narrowed down and very nearly could have been Leinster just running out of time when trying to come back.
Yeah, absolutely. Once again, some pretty odd decisions. Listen, for the good part of this game, Northampton were the better side, but just left the door open. And what makes this game even more fascinating? Three yellow cards throughout the game. Usually, if you're going to Leinster, there's going to be 3 yellow cards against your own team. You're basically pushing it uphill a little bit. But boy, what I loved about Northampton was their ability just to keep attacking and their attacks came from really strange places. Few of their tries were well taken long distance tries where they managed to open up the Leinster defence. And listen, right in the thick of it was this very, very promising loose forward, Henry Pollock, who's only 20 years old. I think he's just played the one test for England. I reckon he could be an absolute bolter for this Lions to a Paul, because he just brings something different. I've already heard people mentioning him in the same breath as Richie McCaw, which is pretty incredible for a 20-year-old. But his energy, his ability at breakdown is really second to none. And right at the end, he disrupted a lot of the Leinster ball legally, shall I say, and just made a complete nuisance of himself at the breakdown. And when you consider he was up against a player who was a former player in the year, that's Van der Fleer, who's been a player of the year. Man, that's just such an outstanding performance. I thought, Alex Mitchell at 9 as well. Boy, he's class, isn't he? Him and Finn Smith, the first 5. I thought they manoeuvred their team around expertly and probably shaded their two Irish opposites. This is not a weak Leinster team. Once again, you got to question Leo Cullen not starting with Geordie Barrett. Well, I think brought Geordie Barrett on in the second half, and Barrett definitely made a difference to their attack. But I think it was just a case of too little, too late. But the oddest decision right at the end, Paul. They get a penalty. There's another yellow card, and they kick for the corner, and they turned down a very kickable penalty, which would have levelled the scores, and of course, good chance it would have gone to extra time. But given that the visitors Northampton were a player down, Paul, I think it's something we've been watching in Super Rugby all year, and we keep scratching our heads. You talked about being a comedy show. It just gets better with some of the decisions that aren't being made on the field. So listen, big ups to Northampton. What's been 25 years or something like that since they've been in the final, but that is a real big win. There's a little bit of talk as well about the crowd. Wasn't a sellout, Paul. 40 odd thousand in the ground, and you could just see some of the top tier. There were a lot of seats missing. There was talk about how the match was promoted, of course, last year when these same two teams, now stand to be corrected, met last year as well in the champions quarterfinal, but they met at Croke Park, and there was 80,000 at Croke Park, and the tickets were a lot cheaper in the previous season. So as I basically look, there you go. They played Leinster at Croke Park in the 2024 season. There was 80,000 people there. A lot of talk about the price of tickets. So, boy, it just shows you it's even starting to maybe bite in the Northern Hemisphere, Paul.
Oh, and it has done in Ireland for a few. This was held in Aviva Stadium. Now there's probably about 5 or 6 Aviva stadiums around the world. So the old Lansdowne Road. And look, when it got redeveloped, the Irish Rugby Union, I think, took on a bunch of debt. So yes, the cost of tickets there are not cheap for that one. Obviously, this is not Leinster's normal ground, so they normally play in a much smaller ground than that one. So yes, but so interesting that this one was at the Aviva Stadium, and yeah, shame they couldn't fill it. But still much bigger than their home ground, so still they sold a lot more than they would have done if they played at home. So great victory for Northampton. I mean, you look at that bench: Kelleher, Porter, Braid, Baird, Conan, McGrath, Bry, Geordie Barrett. Yeah, I mean, those are all internationals on the bench. they're not being on there because they're injured. It's because they've got other internationals like Sheenan, Furlong, Healy, etc. Are on the pitch. So you say not a side that lacked quality for by any stretch of the imagination in that one. So cracking result by Northampton. In the other game, then it was Bordeaux versus Toulouse. Toulouse without Anton Dupont. So Jalabert versus Ntamak. is a way of looking at this one. Bordeaux, again, they got the home they were playing at home in this one. So obviously the higher seeded team got a lead of 18-11 at half time, and then pushed that out and never looked back really in the second half to win that one 35 to 18. So cracking result for Bordeaux as well in that one. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see. So the final, which is so Northampton versus Bordeaux on May the 25th, over in Cardiff at the Principality Stadium. So neutral venue there for the final with that one. So cracking. That should be a cracking game over there.
Yeah, I just sort of looking at it, looks like Bordeaux scored. Looks like either 4 or 5 tries. I see former Chiefs player Ben Tamiafuna came on with a little bit of a cameo at the end, managed to pick up a plum as well. And I see BL Biari also picked up a couple of tries, and so did remember Australian former Brumbies loose forward Pete Samu picked up an early try, but that was a little bit of it. Even though the likes of DuPont isn't there, that was a bit of a surprise result, because if you actually sort of turn it around, it was the number 1 and 2 teams in the French top 14. Of course, Toulouse leading that top 14, and Bordeaux right beside them. So you probably got to say Bordeaux in the box seat, shall we say? Although they're going to still have to play very well to get past what will be a very, very confident Northampton team, Paul.
Yep. On in that one. So moving on then to the Super Rugby from the weekend. And first up, the Blues, very much on a lifeline here, up against the Force, who have spent most of the season in that top 6, in that finals position. For this one, at Eden Park, obviously. First off, Retina got a try, and then Carl Forbes. So the Blues went out, and Carl Forbes went over without even being touched. It was a lovely move by the set move by the Blues for that one to lead 12-0. Tizano on half time did pull one back to make it 12-7. So it was still in touch at half time. In the second half, though, AJ Lamb comes on. And his first touch of the ball picks up a long pass from Bowden Barrett and goes over to score. Curtly Beale scores with one amazing offload in the corner. That was a lovely piece of skill there. But look, with Bowden Barrett pulling the strings, and we saw McFonnell go over with running a great line. Whilst on the Tribe Sports app, it says it's Barrett scored, Barrett converted. No, he didn't. Barrett kicked across for Carl Forbes to score another one there. And look, the Blues in this one were in control of this game, and did look to me like always going to win this one, which is definitely a situation they've not felt like they've been in for much of this season. And I think very much key in this has been getting Bowden Barrett back and getting the ball in his hands and letting him pull the strings personally.
I think, Paul, it's fair to say probably from that 54th minute when McConnell scored, then they basically looked like they would pull away with the game. Because I actually thought that first half scoreline actually flattered the Blues. It was, of course, the Force that created so many chances, and a couple of guys who played really well were Carl Tizano, who rightly so scored a try, his 12th try of the campaign. So that what's that? Almost a try a game. Maybe he's got a couple of other. Yeah, crazy.
The Force. The Force have played 11 games and he's scored 12 tries.
He scored 11 games, 12 tries. So pretty amazing. You've got to say from Tizano. And I thought,
for the second year running, we have a loose forward being the top try scorer in the competition.
Yeah, crazy, taking that mantle away from Hoskins Tutu from last year. It's still a few rounds to go as well, but I suppose it's important for the East to keep scoring try for the Western Force to actually stay in this in this competition. I also thought Harry Potter was very, very good as well, and I thought at times the Blues were a little bit clunky in that first half, making a lot of handling errors. But yeah, as you previously said, Paul, just doing enough to basically win this game quite comfortably. Although I would imagine that Coach Vern Cotter, after the Blues were ahead comfortably, they'd banked the 5 points. I'm not exactly too sure what they were trying to achieve right at the end after the hooter had gone, because they just needed to kick it out, and almost opened up an opportunity for the Western Force. Absolutely comical. Sam Knock needed to clear it to touch, but decided he'd throw an inside pass to to Angus Talvao, who decided to kick it to touch, but ended up air kicking it, and gave the Force that one more opportunity. Just absolutely unbelievable. And whilst Vern Cotter had a smile on his face, I think that there would have been a bit of grinding of the teeth under that smile, Paul.
Oh, look, if it had gone the other way, I think you can see the humour in it if it works for you. But yeah, someone will be taking him to one side and having a very stern word with him this year about this one. Look, just get it over the line. Look, I mean, the Force 18 turnovers in this game compared to 8 by the Blues. Yes, they had a lot more ball. Yes, had a lot more attack. But this Blues side has previously built itself on defence. Defensively, it is a very strong team still, and that's. Yes, you look at the 40-point scoreline, but you're probably better off looking at the your defensive stats, where the Blues made 191 tackles compared to 101 by the Force, and yet the Blues missed 24 tackles compared to 26. So the Force missed more tackles, having done nearly half the amount of tackles. So yeah, great defence by the Blues that won this one, rather than necessarily looking at the scoreline. I think it was lots of wonderful play. Heading over then to so that's the only game on Friday night, because we don't like to have consistency in when our games are. The Drua hosted the Queensland Reds on Saturday with this one. Look, the Drua scored first and got 3 tries in that first half. Unfortunately, they also allowed the Reds to get 3 tries in there, off perhaps what you might call a kind of Fijian Drua style play, with you kind of breaking and getting the offload off and scoring. But the difference was the Drua could not hit any of their conversions over, whereas the Reds could, which meant the Reds got that 15-19 lead at half time. 3 missed conversions that first half, really letting the Blues off the hook, really. Come the second half though, and the Drua come out with all guns blazing, getting a couple of tries. It did help with forwards powering over and keeping it close to the sticks at this point, allowing the conversions to be knocked over. And you think, look, at 29-19, things are looking good for the Drua. Only for the Reds, to come back, getting 2 tries of their own, and also knocking over the conversions to take a 2-point lead coming in to the end, looking like the Reds have got themselves in a decent position. The Reds though turn over the ball, and it gets lost, and the Drua go on to score to win the game. Doesn't help that McWright got himself yellow carded towards the end there as well. But a 3-point win there for the Drua, with that very late try from a turnover ball as well. So great win for the Drua, much needed for them this season, let's be honest, but not convincing at home. You have to take your mute off first, mate.
Yeah, it's probably a result that it's probably not a surprise at the end of the day. It's all been said before. Never easy going up to the islands to play, but I think the disappointment for the Reds is they actually got themselves in a position to win this game, only to relinquish it at the end. And there's probably not much more than you could say. Probably the only sort of saving grace, they walk away with a bonus point, pull from this game, but you've got to sort of question their ability to play away in this competition. Obviously, shown what they're capable of at home, but on the road, we are in a situation. If they are to make the finals, it's something they're going to have to address.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they had this one under control, but they went and they went and lost. They lost this. This is one that they'll feel they lost rather than they got beaten because you said they did put themselves in that position to win it, and they should have done so. Heading across then to back to New Zealand down to Wellington, where the Imperious Chiefs, who have been the side that everyone's been saying, hey, you know what, this is the side to beat this season, went down to the Hurricanes, who have been very inconsistent this year. Look, I mean, not helped by injuries in key positions, particularly 10. But having moved Love there, they do seem to have been moving in the right direction. But in the first half, that's all they could do was get Love penalties. So they could not get over the line as Daniel Rona got over for 2 tries. The second of which was an intercept as he ran free to head down there. So not really well. The first try was well worked, but neither side was able to really work tries in that first half. That try on half time meant that what had looked like being a very tight game at 9-10 suddenly became a 9-17 lead for the Chiefs. They've been very happy with that at half time. The problem for them, though, was, and especially look, as we've had several games this season where the Chiefs come out in the second half and absolutely dominated the game. Unfortunately for them, the Hurricanes played them at their own game, and Balin Sullivan came on and scored 4 tries. Now, look, these weren't individual efforts. This was him finishing off generally stuff that was made for him, as a good winger does. It didn't help by Sean Stevenson's yellow card. Whilst the Hurricanes couldn't take lots of advantage from it. That 50-22 that led to one of those tries was directly because there's lots of space in that backfield that they could kick into. Balin Sullivan, look, they will be. I don't think he's buying the beers. I think he'll be buying him beers for getting them out of for really getting them out of jail for this one and keeping their season potentially on track.
Yeah, listen, that first half, I actually thought the Chiefs actually dominated that first half with their defence. I thought their defence was stinging. It put a whole heap of pressure on the Hurricanes, forced them into mistakes, and possibly the best game I've seen this year from Samapeni Finau. I thought in those particular aspects, I thought he was very physical. And just leading from the front, and I thought that midfield that were doing a reasonably good job of keeping both Higgins and Proctor pretty quiet. Of course, when the Hurricanes lost Kinina, I thought, gee, that might be a really big blow because he does offer something special. I must admit, it was a heck of a blow for me personally, because I actually replaced Balin Sullivan with Kenny Naholo in my unbelievable in my fantasy team, because I thought, if ever Kenny Naholo was going to get on the scoreboard, it was going to be against the Chiefs in this game. But boy, if you had Balin Sullivan in your fantasy team, you're winning, aren't you, at the end of the day? And I actually thought in the second half, there were times early in the second half where the Chiefs were actually winning the aerial battle, but all of a sudden, a few things started going their way. The more the Higgins Proctor combination came into the game, you just basically find the defence start sweating on those guys, and of course it just gave somebody like Ruben Love the opportunity to run the cutter. And boy, some of the stuff that he was doing with his kicking was on point, wasn't it?
It was, absolutely. But I mean, look, here's a kid who is supposed to be a 15, who plays a bit of 10, who is now, who is playing, who is doing it with lots of comfort at that kind of level, which is very impressive. Let's be honest. They are, look, they're down to kind of like third choice or fourth choice, kind of number 10 at the moment. They say getting a makeshift 10 in there. So the Hurricanes doing it very well. Look, a combined 41 turnovers, so a turnover every 2 minutes, is not the kind of rugby we expect to be watching in New Zealand. So well done to the Hurricanes for surviving that first half, and then finishing off. But that is a lot of turnovers in a game, as neither side really could control the ball.
Interestingly enough, Paul, it's the style of game that actually suits both of these teams, doesn't it? You know, if you're playing the Chiefs, you turn the ball over, they sting you. Hurricanes very much the same. It's just that the Hurricanes were just probably that little bit more clinical. The card to Sean Stevenson certainly didn't help the Chiefs in the second half. But boy, there was some really good performance. I thought Peter Lakai, in fact, that loose forward trio, Yosei Lakai and Kurifi probably outplayed their opposites in the long run. And of course, Ruben Love, very, very, very good. And that midfield pairing gets better and better. Probably a guy who's a little bit of was an unknown quantity a year ago in Super Rugby is Callum Harkin, and it's probably fair to say, Paul, he's probably your breakout player of the year in terms of the New Zealand sides in Super Rugby 2025. I know the likes of Kyle Preston down on the Crusaders once again came out of the blocks pretty strong, but I'm sort of looking around thinking about players that are out there. Maybe it's a question we can ask some of our viewers that are watching the show who they actually think the New Zealand breakout player of the year is. But I'm thinking Callum Harkin for mine is just played so well.
There. I mean, Carter, the winger for the Chiefs, again, it's his first season out of sevens, and down in the Highlanders, I've gone blank. Again, winger down there. Tangitau is also
Tangitau. Yep.
So, back three players. Definitely, there's some standout back three players this year who are putting their hands up. But those are the three guys. As you say, in the live chat, do let us know, or in the comments on YouTube or Facebook, let us know your thoughts as to breakout player of the season. But that definitely puts a dent in the Chiefs. Lucky for them, the Crusaders had a bye this week, so the Crusaders couldn't go past them. But that does mean that the Crusaders do have a game in hand now, and can go past the Chiefs at the top of the table. But we'll be talking about looking forwards in a second about the sort of fixtures coming up. But the big Aussie derby to finish off Saturday with the Brumbies hosting the Waratahs. I'll be honest, I thought this game was going to be a lot closer than this. But the Brumbies really did show their ability here. Look, Tool's first try, some lovely shapes being shown by the Brumbies, pulling the ball out the back twice to give him space out wide to go over untouched and to score. So some really good play there as in attacking structure.
Boy, when you get that move right, Paul, it's probably the easiest way to score. We saw a couple of other teams do this move really well, and it's really important that you actually hold that midfield in, and even if the first five is basically wrapping, and your wingers, your defensive wingers pulled in, they practically just walk the try in. Although you sort of think back to the previous game where Love decided just to kick it, was just as easier to kick it across. But in all honesty, with a little bit of activation, they could have taken the safe option and kicked it. But if your activation is on point, wow, can't go wrong.
Jake Gordon got yellow carded. I didn't see that, but the Ikitau got the second try. Now, is it me, or is Ikitau now a pick and go merchant? I think that's his second try this year, and a second try from being a pick and go. He doesn't seem to be sort of getting running tries anymore for Ikitau. And you look there, you're thinking, okay, 12-0, Brumby with a player off the pitch. the Brumbies got this one under control, only for them, for Gleeson to put his big arm out and to get the most unlikely of interceptions and to run it in for a try.
That happened so quickly. To the point where what on earth happened there? And boy, that was some great ball control. So the man must have big mitts.
Oh yes, absolutely. I mean, I didn't see how that was coming. And then whilst we've been talking about Cyril Leahy being this high ball expert and lots of and let's put the ball up and for him to go and catch it. The Waratahs use him on a crash ball, and boy, he shows that he's a big boy as well, running it in and goes over for a try. And for a game that was that you thought, look, the Brumbies are nicely in control of this. Suddenly it's 12-all, and the Waratahs have got themselves back into it. Pollard, though, look, I those people who say that. And we'll be getting on to the Moana game next, Gold Blood Rugby. But those people who say that the Brumbies are this kick to the corner, line out maul merchants, really haven't been watching them for the past 3 years. They're not that anymore. Yes, they can do it, but that's not their DNA. That's not their main thing. But even so, Pollard did go over for a line out maul try to give them a lead of 19-12 at half time. And it seemed like being a nice close game. Yes. And then the Waratahs didn't come out in the second half. Or the Brumbies went to work. I'll let you decide which one it was. Alan Alatoa bashed over for another try. Look, he's good for your fantasy points as well. There's a prop that scores tries. He's scoring a few this year. So he powered over for one. Pollard then also powered over before the Waratahs really had to chance their arm, because now look, it's 33-12. They've got to go for everything, and that meant loose rugby and a sevens player like Toole, who's got amazing pace, and that's a recipe for disaster. He picked up a loose ball and just ran it straight back after what was a bit of ping pong. It was all over the place. He picks up the loose one, and at 40 to 12. You could have stopped this game before the hour mark, because you know what, this game was over. Sure, Kellaway picks up a late try, but it was all way too little, way too late for the Waratahs. And yeah, the Brumbies put in a great come out the sheds at half time and really put this one to bed, to put themselves in a real good position.
Oh, absolutely. And, you know, we've always known the Brumbies as a team that can be quite dour at times, especially going through the forwards. But you know, you kind of look at some of the guys that have scored most of their tries. Corey Toole has eight tries, so he's in equal second place, ironically, with Pollard, who's basically scored a lot of tries coming off the bench this year. So that's absolutely crazy. And of course, a guy who we'll talk about in the next game, Miracle Wailangi, also sitting on eight tries as well. But of course, as we previously mentioned, Tazano up there with 10 tries. Lene Kitao sitting on 6 tries. They're definitely, and Muirhead on 7 tries. So they're definitely scoring tries out wide as well.
Yeah, it's this idea that they're just a line-out maul team. It goes back to Pocock times practically. Sure, yes, they can line out maul. I mean, every team can nowadays, but they are much more than that. With your Muirheads and your Wrights, they also both got decent points as far as your fantasy points went this week. I mean, look, the 549 running meters by the Brumbies. That's a lot of running meters, and they kicked the ball more than the Waratahs did as well. So yeah, a lot of attack from them this week, and we saw that with that scoreline. Final game there was on Sunday with the Highlanders hosting Moana Pacifica, and this again, a game that could put Moana Pacifica in the top 6, and a game that the Highlanders really had to win to have any chance of making the playoffs this year. Rasmussen Neepkins, has come back from injury and is playing absolutely great at the moment. Look, he's removed those yellow cards that we first saw from him when he first came into Super Rugby. I don't think he's had one yet. I don't remember having one yet this season. Now, admittedly, the opening try that he scored came from Moana Pacifica trying to play out of their own 22, which is a bit silly in that one. Too adventurous for them. Danny Twala then did bash over for a try, and he also created the second one, by the way. But in between those, Jonah Lowe picked up a try, but still with a penalty, a long-range penalty from William Havili at half-time. That meant that Moana went in with a slight lead of 12 to 17. And then it all got a bit crazy in the second half. William Havili, look, he puts the kick goes up. He comes in, tackles the player. There is a very slight drop by the person, by the player who caught the ball. But to my mind, William Havili was way too high, and hence why he got the shoulder to head contact, picking up the yellow card. I'll be honest, I didn't see where the mitigation was. I think he got very lucky that didn't get upgraded to a red under review. You've got to come lower than that when you're taking out the player, and there's just no need to go at that height. You're much better, actually, to go into the solar plexus and just fold the guy. He's much that way. There's a good chance he's going to knock the ball on because you're going beneath the ball. By going at that height, you're wrapping up the ball, you're wrapping up everything. You're not going to get that knock on. You're not going to get anything. So to my mind, he got that all wrong, and he was lucky, as I say, to get away with just a yellow card. But in that time, whilst the Highlanders did pull off a penalty because, with Havili off, there was just nobody dealing with high kicks for the Moana. They just let it bounce, and that was just awful. But you know what, Captain Fantastic came to the rescue. Last weekend? I think it was, where Artie Surveyor's try got pulled back and was disallowed. This time, this time it counted. He didn't chip over this time. He got it through instead to go and collect it and score to put his side into the lead. Only for Jonah Lowe to come back, score again, and the conversion evened things up at 22 all. Miracle Failangi then scored out wide. He's having a fantastic season for a player who was picked out of club rugby in, I'm going to say Samoa. I think it's Samoa, isn't it? It's not Tonga.
Yes.
World Rugby put together a combine, and as far as I'm aware, he's the only player that's been taken out of one of those combines. But boy, oh boy, he has. He really has gone from strength to strength. Apparently, he did play sevens before at international level, so he has some pedigree.
Oh, very much so, and it shows in the way he plays. Paul, he just got that great acceleration. Once he beats the first tackle, he gets you well behind the advantage line. And boy, if you're another forward running off him, boy, you're going to score some tries.
And the great thing is, look, if there's him and Ardy lined up in the backfield, which one do you cover? It's giving Ardy a lot more space as well. It works both ways. Look, a line-out maul try got the Highlanders back in front because Pellegrini wasn't great with the boot, and he came on at half time to replace Garden Bashop, his radar wasn't quite working, and that gave a 2-point lead for the Highlanders heading into the closeout of this game. They've got the ball in their own 22. Let's make a nice safe exit, pass the ball back, and no, because in comes perhaps the shortest player on the pitch. The Moana's scrum half replacement who's come on, charges down the kick, and then touches down in the corner. Boy, oh boy, we talked about the Reds not being able to close out a game, but the Highlanders also in this one. Sorry, but look, as good as Moana have been, the Highlanders should have closed this one out. Having that, okay, it's not a great lead. It's a small lead, but to give up a charge down try on 75 minutes, that's just unforgivable. That's a coach killer, I'm afraid. But so yeah, I think that's the first Moana Pacifica win away from home in New Zealand.
Yeah. I don't think so. I think they may have beaten the Crusaders in one of the earlier rounds as well. So they've actually beaten both South Island sides away this year. Have Moana. So yep, they have. So they picked up that famous win probably round.
That's right. Yep, you're quite right. They did. Yep.
Yeah, earlier in the season against
29-45.
That used to be a little bit of an issue with Moana. You think back to those two real early games that they lost, which they should have won. The one to the fourth, I think, was that the very first game of the season. There might have been a previous game against the Highlanders where they were a tad unlucky. Listen, Paul, they could
they're up by 1 point to the Force in the opening round, and then by 2 points to the Highlanders in round 3.
Yeah,
so two very close games.
Exactly. They could very easily, if I'm looking at the table, they could very easily be sitting in fourth place clear at this stage, probably just needing a win to qualify. Listen to us once again, some good performances, and once again, you're right, Artie. I heard them talking on radio today. What sort of name would you give him? But I'm a great believer when we're talking great players. We just know them by either their first or their second name. If you're talking about Jonah, you knew who Jonah was. If you're talking about McCaw, you knew who McCaw was, even though it was the second name. Artie is just playing some of the best rugby I've ever seen him. Is it an irony that he's actually playing this rugby at seven, Paul? That's a question. That's another question we could actually throw out there, because man, he's just getting some unbelievable turnovers. Listen to some other good performances from this Moana side. I thought up front Chris Apua had a very, very good game, always getting over the advantage line, and amazingly, I think he actually played close to 72 minutes before he was replaced by the big former Melbourne Rebels prop Famasili. Yeah, Famasili, who came on with about seven minutes to go. So, man, what a shift by Chris Apua. I thought he was very good. I thought Sam Whailangi was good. Tupai Taialoa didn't get the go forward you see from him, but once again a very physical individual, and I just thought in the backs, I also thought Tuala was very good at 12.
Yeah, I think it brings a lot of organisation to that back as well, the back line. I've seen someone suggesting that Pellegrini and Garden Bishop should play 10-12. I'm like, no. You've already got William Havili at 15, who is a 10 and who's a playmaker. You don't need 3 playmakers on the pitch. You just need 2. Right? You don't need 3.
I agree.
So I think that's a bit over the top on that one. But yeah, if we look at how Moana Pacific have gone, back in 2022 they got 2 wins. In 23 they got 1 win. Last year they got 4 wins, and this year they got 5 already. Okay, with so look, they are heading definitely in the right direction, which is great. Great to see on that one. So where does that leave us then? Having a quick look at the table. Despite their loss, the Chiefs remain top of the table on 37 points, but the Crusaders are also on 37 points in second place with they've played 1 less game. They could obviously it's in their hands now rather than in the Chiefs' hands. Next up comes the Brumbies. With that win, that gets them within 3 points of those two. So on 34 points. Another 4 points back are the Reds, who have lost a bit of ground with that loss. So I've got a losing bonus point though. The Hurricanes, with that win, are up to 5th now on 26 points. So just 2 points behind the Reds. Moana Pacifica, with their win, are into the top 6 on 24 points, so just 2 points behind the Hurricanes. So for so long, we've had 4 Australian teams in the top 6. We're now down to just 2 with the Brumbies and the Reds, as the Force and Waratahs have dropped out of that now. In 7th place are the Blues on 22 points, just 2 points outside of the playoffs. but on the same number of points as the Western Force. So both on 22 points. The Waratahs on 21 points, 1 point back. But again, they have also got a game in hand. So they could climb into the top 6 if they win that game in hand. The Highlanders, though, look, they're 6 points off the playoffs. I think we can probably call it now that they are not going to make it. And the Fijian and Drua, even with that win, are still 3 points behind the Highlanders on 15 points there. So look, 2 wins in the last 3 games is great news for the Fijian and Drua. But let's be honest, they've let themselves down far too much in the earlier part of the season for them to have any hope of getting of really climbing in much higher than where they are now. So we're 4 rounds left of the competition, and the schedulers have decided, you know what, with 4 rounds to go, we'll put in as many rest weeks as possible, which just does my head in. We only have 4 games next week. We're supposed to be crescendoing to the end end of the regular season, and you go and take 3 teams out this weekend. So Moana, Pacifica, the Highlanders, and I've gone blank. Moana, Pacifica, Highlanders, and the Hurricanes are all taking this week off. Round 14, we go back to 5 games. Round 15, the penultimate round, we're back down to 4 games again. So 3 teams again have a bye. What are you doing? 2 rounds left of the season, and you're resting as many teams as possible? That's a joke. The final round, luckily, is 5 teams, thankfully. But yes, I really New Zealand rugby does not help itself. Yes, there's been lots of talk about how the TV numbers are good, and how and they're really happy with attendances. But look, attendances still are around the sort of 9,000-10,000 for good games. You look at the Warriors or the Phoenix; they're getting 15,000. So look, this is there is still yes, we're better than we were. But that's because we dropped to a really low level about 2 or 3 years ago. And I'm not, and just forget COVID and closed games. It just got to a really close. So hopefully it'll be around that. Simon says, I'm guessing this is all built around international team restrictions. No, I don't think it is. It's down to they've got this many games in this many weeks, and it's just badly designed. Sorry. If you look at the NRL one, they cram all of their weekends where there are less games around Origin in the sort of middle of the season, not towards the end of the season. So yeah. Looking forwards though, let's try and actually look forward and actually enjoy the 4 games we have this coming weekend. On Friday we kick off with the Drua versus the Blues. That is our 7 p.m. game in Suva, and you got to say, off the back of that win, look, the Blues going to one of those heavy favourites.
Yeah, they do. I think the Blues will also be pretty pleased that this is an evening game, so won't be as warm, so that the heat shouldn't be an issue. But boy, Fiji and Drew, they grow legs and arms and all sorts. Back in Fiji, the Blues will have to be right on this game, right on their game. Listen, I think the Blues are still playing for their lives in a way. I think they can possibly afford a loss, maybe, but I'll tell you what, I think a win would put them in a very good position to carry on and cement themselves in the top 6. So I'm picking the Blues win.
The Blues have got 3 games coming up. They're away to the Drua. To me, this is a must win. They then are away to Moana Pacifica. But look, I mean, that's in North Harbour Stadium. It's not really away, is it? And then they have a bye in round 15 before round 16, whilst they host the Waratahs. I think that is a relatively soft finish to the season, and also gets them against 2 of the teams that are fighting them for those last playoff places. The game against the against Moana Pacifica, that's a 10-pointer, as is the Waratahs, really. They're sort of 2 of the teams that are challenging from the first. So it's in their hands. The Blues are $1.40, and I can't look past that. Look, the Drua traditionally have been good at home, but they haven't been this year. I'm sorry. Even last weekend where they beat the Reds, it was because of a turnover late on. They were lucky to get away with a win from there. So, Blues all day long, me. And then a cracker of a game. Waratahs versus the Reds. This could be we're talking about must-win games. This is where we're talking the Waratahs. This could be where the Reds can kill off the Waratahs season. To me, the Waratahs are playing every round from now on. They've had their byes. They've got the Reds, then the Crusaders at home before they before they travel to the Force, and then that final round against the Blues. So, look, that Crusaders game is not easy as well. So again, this is one that the Reds need it before that. Otherwise, they're going to slip into that battle of are they going to make it? Aren't they going to make it? And the Waratahs need it because otherwise, I think they're pretty much their season's over.
Given that the Reds haven't travelled that well, I'm actually going for the Waratahs. I'm picking an upset here.
That will be an upset. The Waratahs at $2.45. The Reds at $1.50. I think it's closer than that. I think it's closer to a coin flip because I've not been that convinced by the Reds, as you say, especially on the road for that one. So, I see where you're coming from with the Waratahs getting that one.
Yeah, Reds have just been so inconsistent on the road, Paul. As much as I would like to back them, I actually think there's a really good opportunity if you want to make a couple of bucks at $2.45.
Remember, folks, always gamble responsibly. Don't place anything you cannot afford to lose. Next up, the Crusaders hosting the Chiefs. Now, the Chiefs coming off the back of two losses. Two losses in the last 4 games. Sorry, they lost to the Waratahs. They beat then the Highlanders, the Force, and then lost to the Hurricanes. The Crusaders on a run of 4 wins coming into this. The TAB's finding this one hard to pick. They got $1.77 of the Crusaders, $1.97 for the Chiefs. They got it very tight there. The Crusaders look, they've lost Kamara. They're number 10. Kamara, is it? I think I've gone blank. But if the Chiefs don't have Dave McKenzie back, I think the Crusaders are taking this.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with you. Going to be a big challenge for Rivers Reihana, which would probably be his biggest ever game at first 5. But when you've got James O'Connor as backup, it's a pretty handy player to have. The Crusaders will be well rested after their bye this weekend, and boy, they'll want a little bit of revenge from earlier in the year as well. And they know that a win over the Chiefs will break whoever wins this game, Paul, is pretty much in the box seat.
The Crusaders still have a game in hand, so they're the ones with the most room to. So a quick look at the injury list from round 12 and see what it says about the Chiefs. For Dave McKenzie, hand returning soon. So I think if we'll have to see whether he returns or not. So the Crusaders, I think, can afford to lose this one, but the Chiefs definitely cannot. Obviously, they wouldn't like to lose this one, but a losing bonus point for the Crusaders isn't the end of the world. A loss for the Chiefs, I think, is, relatively speaking. But I think it comes down to, if they've got Dave McKenzie, I'm going Chiefs. If they haven't, then I'm going Crusaders. Final game on Saturday, and for the round, is the Force hosting the Brumbies. $2.45 for the Force, $1.50 for the Brumbies. When you consider from memory, didn't the Force beat the Brumbies in Canberra early in the season? They did, 42-45. To me, that is very long odds for the Force at home over there. I think there's definitely some value in the Force at $2.45.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with you again. these Aussie derbies have been just as brutal as some of the Kiwi ones, and there'll be a lot of good matchups. This is also a big game for the Brumbies because it's important that they basically stay in, not relinquish that third place, and stay in third place to actually get themselves a home. I don't know how it works out. What you'd call it?
It's called a quarterfinal because that's the first round. Yeah.
Yeah, first round. So it's important, mate. Once again, I thought the Force played pretty well against the Blues in the first half, and they're pretty well coached side. The Brumbies on the road sometimes, man. I'm very, very tempted to go for the Force, but I'm going to go for the Brumbies in a close one.
Yeah, well, I'm for the I'm with the Force in this one. I think to my mind. So yes, so that's the upcoming games, folks. Do join us next Monday at 8 p.m. as we'll have a chat about those 4 games. And remember my message from earlier: do something now that your future self will thank you for. And good night, everybody.